In the foggy mornings of Ozark Hollow, townsfolk would gather outside a tiny stone bakery before the sun even rose. The warm smell of cinnamon rolls curled through the air like a sweet promise. Inside the shop stood Elias Hollander, the owner and baker. He was known for two things. One, the softest bread in the entire county. Two, a laughter he couldn't control. Every time his hands pressed into dough, he would chuckle, giggle, snort, sometimes even bend over laughing so hard flour puffed into the air like snow. Kids adored him. Adults were confused by him. Some whispered behind his back. A grown man acting like a fool? Probably not right in the head. But Elias didn't stop laughing, because for him, laughter was life. Though Elias looked joyful, there was a truth nobody saw. His laughter began 2 years earlier, after the world had taken someone from him. Someone whose laughter once filled the bakery louder than his wife, Mabel. She used to knead dough beside him, humming hymns and telling silly jokes. But illness stole her breath long before her time. Her loss nearly broke him. One night, overcome with grief, Elias tried baking alone. His hands trembled, then slipped into the dough awkwardly, making a squishy sound so ridiculous he let out a small laugh through tears. That laugh became a lifeline. Mabel always said, "Find joy in the things that make you rise," like bread. So now Elias laughed for the both of them. Among the morning crowd was Daisy Miller, a shy 10-year-old girl. She lived with her stern grandmother and rarely spoke, but she always came for one warm honey bread roll, one loud laugh from Elias. "Good morning, Miss Daisy," he'd say, flour dusting his beard. She'd hide her smile behind her small hands. Elias once asked, "What do you dream of becoming?" But Daisy never answered, though her eyes sparkled as if holding 100 unsaid wishes. Elias noticed. He always noticed. Not everyone admired Elias. Across the road, Cornelius Fitch, owner of the Fitch Fine Bakery, sneered daily from his window. He wore suits too tight, hats too tall, and a frown that never left his face. He saw Elias's customers lining up and burned with jealousy. "That buffoon laughs his way into profit," Cornelius muttered. So he spread rumors. "Elias isn't right in the head. His bread must be tainted. His laughter is unnatural." Some believed him. Customers came less often. Elias noticed the change. Fewer coins in the drawer, more leftover loaves. Still, he laughed, because laughter was all he had left. One rainy afternoon, the town was quiet. Daisy rushed into the bakery, soaked and shivering. "Come here now," Elias said gently, placing a blanket around her shoulders. She noticed a ball of dough on the counter. With that faint, rare smile, she pressed her tiny hands into it. The dough puffed between her fingers. She giggled. Elias's heart lit up. "You like baking?" he asked. Silence. Then a small nod. Under his guidance, Daisy kneaded and giggled again. For the first time, Elias heard hope in her laughter. Daisy became a regular afternoon helper. Elias taught her how dough rises like people do, slowly and with warmth. "Don't punch the dough in anger," he'd say, chuckling. "Give it a playful push." "It needs love to grow," she tried. She laughed, and day by day, her fear of the world chipped away like dry crust. Her grandmother noticed Daisy coming home joyful, and it frightened her. Joy wasn't something she trusted. Cornelius, enraged that Daisy spent time there, stormed into Elias's bakery. "You're making a fool of this town with your ridiculous laughter." Elias smiled kindly. "Cornelius, laughter is the ingredient that—" "Enough! I challenge you to a county harvest baking contest. Winner takes the title of Best Baker of Ozark Hollow." Elias didn't like competition. But when Daisy's hopeful eyes lifted toward him, he nodded. For her, for Mabel, for Joy. Contest day loomed. Cornelius showcased sugar sculptures and extravagant pastries. Elias had something much simpler in mind, the heart bread, a secret recipe he and Mabel created. Bread filled with honey, cinnamon, and a little carved heart in the center. A bread that warmed souls. Daisy helped prepare it daily, practicing kneading with laughter. But as the contest neared, Elias's laughter began to fade. Memories of Mabel brought back anxiety. Could he honor her? What if he failed? What if laughter wasn't enough? The night before the contest, Elias stayed late baking. He pressed his hands into the dough, waiting for the laughter to come. Nothing. Tears stung his eyes. He whispered into the quiet room, "Mabel, I don't know if I can do this." The bakery, once filled with laughter, felt hollow. Daisy walked in unexpectedly and found him trembling. She did the only thing she could. She placed her hands in the dough, pressed down. Squish. She giggled. He looked up. Then a small laugh escaped him, shaky but real. "You helped me rise again," he whispered. Contest morning arrived. A crowd gathered, judges observed. Cornelius presented a towering cake, polished to perfection. Applause echoed. Then Elias stepped forward with one humble loaf. Just bread, nothing more. But when the judges sliced it open, a tiny cinnamon heart steamed from the center. The smell carried memories, warmth, love, and laughter. People lined up for a taste. The first judge bit into it and smiled. The second laughed unexpectedly. The third judge took a bite and tears welled up. Joy, nostalgia, comfort. The crowd leaned in, whispering, "Why does this bread make me feel happy?" Cornelius's face paled. Something special was happening. Something bigger than bread. Something Cornelius never understood. When the judges announced the winner, Best Baker of Ozark Hollow, Elias Hollander, the crowd erupted in cheers, kids danced, old folks clapped, and even Daisy's grandmother cracked a hesitant smile. Cornelius stood frozen, jaw clenched, pride shattered. Elias didn't bask in victory. Instead, he walked to Cornelius and held out a fresh roll of heart bread. "No bitterness here," he said softly. "There's enough joy to go around." Cornelius brushed his hand away and stormed off. But his eyes had flickered with something beyond anger, envy of joy he could never feel. Business boomed after the contest. People came not only for bread, but for happiness. Children tried pressing dough the way Elias taught Daisy, laughing when it squished. Daisy proudly helped them all. Her laughter was no longer rare, it was blooming. Elias crafted a small apron for her, tiny, blue, with embroidered daisies. On the inside, he stitched a message, "Joy is a seed, let it rise." When she saw it, she hugged him tight, the kind of hug that says, "Thank you for believing in me." Daisy's grandmother, Agatha, visited the bakery late one evening. Her eyes were stern, voice sharp. "You're filling the girl's head with nonsense. Laughing doesn't fix life. It makes people weak." Elias wiped his hands, flour on his sleeves. "Maybe joy doesn't fix life," he replied calmly, "but it helps us survive it." Agatha stared at him, caught between fear and envy. "At her age," she finally muttered, "I lost everything because of laughter. It made me trust a man who ran off with my heart and money, a wound she never allowed to heal." Elias didn't argue. Instead, he nodded, understanding pain all too well. One night, lightning cracked open the sky. Rain poured like the heavens were grieving. A fire broke out at Cornelius Fitch's bakery, a spark from his new gas oven. Panicked screams woke the whole town. Cornelius tried to save his loaves, but smoke choked his breathing. He collapsed near the doorway. Before anyone could react, Elias sprinted through the flames. He pulled Cornelius to safety while townsfolk doused the fire. Cornelius coughed violently, staring in disbelief. "You saved me. After everything I did to you," he rasped. Elias simply shrugged. "Every baker deserves a second rise." That night Cornelius understood something. Elias's laughter wasn't foolishness. It was strength. After the fire rescue, Elias developed a terrible cough. He hid it, tried to work through it, but Daisy noticed. "You're not laughing today," she whispered with worry. Elias forced a grin, but no sound came out. His breath was weak, hands trembling. Doctors visited and diagnosed a spreading lung infection from the smoke. They ordered rest, no baking, no laughter. But rest couldn't heal the heaviness in Elias's heart. What if he never laughed again? With Elias bedridden, the bakery risked closing. Daisy refused to let his dream fall. She convinced the townspeople to help, even Cornelius. Together, they lit the ovens before dawn. Daisy pressed dough the way Elias taught her, not angry, not rushed, but with joy. The bakery filled with children's giggles and nervous excitement. When Daisy delivered the first loaf to Elias, he touched the warm crust. A soft laugh escaped. Just a whisper, but it was enough. "You're rising beautifully," he smiled at her. She didn't realize she was crying until flour smeared with tears. Agatha saw the town rally behind a sick man who laughed his way through life. It challenged everything she believed about strength. One evening, she brought Elias soup. She stood awkwardly before saying, "I spent my whole life protecting Daisy from disappointment. But I forgot. Joy is worth the risk." Elias smiled weakly. "Joy is always worth it." Trembling, Agatha asked, "When you recover, will you continue teaching her?" Elias placed his hand over hers. "I'll teach her everything I know, for as long as I'm able." Agatha squeezed his hand, gratitude unspoken. Winter crept into the hollow. Elias's health worsened. He knew his time was shrinking like dough left too long to rise. So, one quiet morning, he asked Daisy and Cornelius to help him to the bakery, just once more. He guided Daisy's hands into the dough, though his own hands barely moved. With each knead, she laughed, tears falling. He laughed too, soft, fragile, but full of love. He shaped one last heartbread. When he carved the cinnamon heart inside, he whispered, "Mabel." I kept laughing. That night, Elias closed his eyes, smiling, and didn't wake. The entire town mourned. Children placed their aprons on the bakery door. Adults brought flowers and candles. Cornelius wept openly, remembering his bitterness and Elias's forgiveness. Daisy sat at the counter, clutching the blue apron. Agatha hugged her granddaughter tightly, something she had not done in years. But through the grief came something beautiful. As the townspeople kneaded dough in silence, one hand slipped, making the familiar squishy sound. Someone laughed. Another joined. Soon the bakery was full of laughter, grief melting into joy. Elias had not left them. He lived in every giggle and crumb. Months later, the bakery reopened with a fresh sign. "Mabel and Elias's Heartbread, where joy rises. Baker, Miss Daisy Miller." Daisy, now confident and radiant, taught children the way Elias taught her. "Push the dough gently. Help it rise," she'd tell them. "Laugh, even when it hurts." Laughter keeps us alive. Cornelius visited often, truly changed and grateful. Agatha baked again after decades, smiling more freely. Every loaf carried a cinnamon heart. Every bite held a memory. And anyone kneading dough could swear. They heard a familiar laugh echoing through the warm walls.